There is a canned bean brand that has been sitting in American pantries for generations, and most people have never looked past the front of the label. It isn't just selling beans, it's selling decades of trust. By the end of this video, you'll know which brands are actually delivering quality, which ones are relying on marketing alone, and why the most recognizable name in the entire aisle ends up at the very top of this list. I pulled the ingredient lists directly from current manufacturer labels and major retailer listings, then cross-checked recall records, retailer ingredient standards, and nutrition data to make sure every claim in this video is backed by publicly available information, not outdated labels or internet rumors. 5 canned bean brands are going back on the shelf. 3 are actually worth buying, and the brand millions of Americans trust without a second thought is saved for last, because once you see what's really behind its reputation, you'll understand why this aisle looks very different than it did 5 minutes ago. Let's get into it. Number 5. Great Value Pinto Beans, the store brand. Whatever name your own grocery chain slaps on the label, the underlying logic is identical. A bean is a bean, so why pay a premium for a name? That instinct is completely reasonable, and it's precisely what the pricing strategy is built around. Flip the can over anyway. Great Value Pinto Beans list prepared pinto beans, water, salt, calcium chloride listed as a firming agent, and disodium EDTA to promote color retention. Calcium chloride, disodium EDTA. 2 fixes for 2 problems a fresher bean wouldn't have created in the first place. Calcium chloride is there because commercial high-heat canning softens bean skins fast, so a firming salt gets added to stop them splitting apart in the can before the product ever reaches a shelf. Disodium EDTA is there because trace metal ions in the water and in the bean itself react with the color pigment over the roughly 2-year shelf life common to this category and dull it, so a chelating agent gets added to bind those ions and hold the color steady for the photo on the label. Sodium runs around 410 milligrams per half-cup serving, not the lowest number on this list and not the highest either. Here's the tell with a store brand specifically. Private label products like this aren't required to disclose which manufacturer actually packs them, so the name on the label and the company that made what's inside it aren't necessarily the same one, and there's no way for you to check. Same bag, same price. No name on the label accountable for who actually made it. You're not paying less for the same product. You're paying less for a version of the same formula with nobody's name attached to defend it if something goes wrong. The next brand charges you specifically for the name that's missing here and asks you to trust that the extra dollar bought something the ingredient list doesn't actually show. Number 4. S&W Pinto Beans, the one priced like a deliberate step up from the store brand. $1 or $2 more, a cleaner label, the quiet implication baked into the price gap that you're buying something meaningfully better. Read the ingredients on S&W Pinto Beans anyway. Prepared pinto beans, water, salt, sugar, calcium chloride as a firming agent, garlic powder, and calcium disodium EDTA to protect color. Same firming salt, same chelating agent, just sweeter. That's the same firming and color chemistry as the store brand you just passed on, with sugar added on top of it. Sodium lands at 480 milligrams per serving, higher than Great Value, the option that cost less. Now the manufacturing record behind the higher price tag. In 2021, Faribault Foods, the manufacturer behind S&W's organic line, recalled S&W organic black beans, along with a related O Organics chili bean line distributed to Costco locations across 11 states. The stated cause was compromised can seal integrity, the exact failure point that lets Clostridium botulinum, the bacterium responsible for botulism, establish itself inside what's supposed to be a sterile, sealed environment. The recall began with 6 affected products and expanded the following month to include 10 more. A higher shelf price bought a cleaner font and a garlic powder ingredient line. It didn't buy different core chemistry, and it sits behind a documented seal failure recall that a bargain bin store brand a few feet away doesn't carry. The next brand doesn't have a premium story to sell at all. It doesn't need one. And that's arguably a more dangerous position to occupy. Number 3. Progresso cannellini, the default choice nobody actively decides to buy, they just always have. Owned by General Mills, one of the largest food companies on the planet, carrying the specific kind of quiet institutional trust that only comes from decades on the same shelf without anyone stopping to ask a question. Progresso's cannellini and kidney bean lines list soaked beans, water, and under 2% salt, calcium chloride, and disodium EDTA, listed specifically as a preservative rather than a firming agent. Whole Foods has banned disodium EDTA from every product sold under its own name as part of its published quality standards, which places Progresso in the identical position as 2 brands still ahead of it on this list. Sodium on the dark red kidney line runs 370 to 380 milligrams per half cup serving. There's no widely stocked no salt added kidney bean anywhere in the standard Progresso lineup, so the choice is take the sodium or switch the brand entirely. There's no lower sodium option within the name you already trust. General Mills has faced its own scrutiny over formulation choices across other parts of its portfolio, from cereal to frozen foods, and the same cost-driven logic behind those choices is visible here too. The trust attached to this brand was inherited the moment it arrived on the shelf. It was never re-earned by what's actually sitting inside the can. Progresso isn't the brand most people would name if you asked them to picture a canned bean. That's exactly the problem. Nobody scrutinizes the default, and this is the definition of a default. Bought on autopilot, restocked on autopilot, never once flipped over and read. The next 2 brands aren't defaults. They're the 2 names people specifically reach for out of loyalty, not habit. And the gap between that loyalty and what's actually printed on the can only gets wider from here. If this breakdown is useful so far, a quick like helps it reach someone else standing in that same aisle right now, deciding between the same 5 cans. Number 2. Goya red kidney beans, the one that functions as a genuine kitchen staple in millions of households, not a casual, interchangeable grocery pick. That relationship is real, and it runs deep across generations, which is exactly why what comes next matters more, not less. Goya's red kidney beans list calcium chloride and disodium EDTA, the identical additive pair carried by Progresso and by the brand still to come at number 1. In March 2024, an FDA inspection found swollen and leaking cans of Goya red kidney beans at a Tradewine Foods facility, triggering a voluntary recall of roughly 31,000 pounds of product. The FDA classified it Class 2, meaning temporary or medically reversible health consequences were considered a reasonable possibility from continued exposure. The affected product had already reached store shelves in Puerto Rico and Sainte Croix before the recall caught it. Separately, in February 2025, a class action filed in California federal court accused Goya of labeling several products, including a cassava chip line and a cooking sauce, as product of USA, despite those products containing foreign-sourced ingredients. And in 2025, a Prop 65 notice followed by a civil complaint was filed in Alameda County Superior Court against Goya Foods of California, specifically over BPA exposure connected to its organic traditional refried beans. One more detail worth checking on your own next time you're in the aisle. Goya's sofrito cooking base, the one built around an olive oil identity, lists soybean oil ahead of olive oil on its own printed ingredient panel. Decades of trust built inside a household doesn't automatically transfer into trust in an ingredient list. Those are 2 separate questions, and for most people buying this brand, only one of them has ever actually been asked. A recall, a labeling lawsuit, and a BPA complaint within about 15 months of each other. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. And it's sitting directly underneath one of the most emotionally trusted names in this entire aisle. There's exactly 1 brand left, and it's the one most people in this comment section are probably about to check their own pantry for. Number 1. Bush's kidney beans. The family recipe, the golden retriever on the label, decades of advertising invested in one specific idea, that this is the honest, homemade feeling brand, the one people trust precisely because it doesn't feel corporate. Bush's has described itself directly, in its own marketing language, as that beautiful bean company. That specific branding is exactly why this label deserves the closest possible read on this entire list. Not the least. Bush's dark red kidney beans list prepared kidney beans, water, sugar, salt, dextrose, calcium chloride as a firming agent, and disodium EDTA to promote color retention. Sugar, dextrose, calcium chloride, disodium EDTA. 4 separate fixes stacked onto a food that structurally needs none of them to leave the plant looking the way the label promises. It's the same logic as a waxed apple sitting under supermarket lights. The coating isn't there for the fruit, it's there for the shelf. Here, the shelf is 2 years long, and the color has to survive every day of it well enough to still match the photo on the can. It includes 2 different sweeteners layered on top of the exact same calcium chloride and EDTA combination already carried by Progresso and by Goya. Bush's regular black beans run 450 milligrams of sodium per half-cup serving. Their own reduced sodium black bean line brings that number down to roughly 200 to 210 milligrams, cutting it by more than half. Sit with that for a second. If a 50% sodium reduction was fully achievable in the reduced line without changing anything else about the recipe, that sodium level was never structurally necessary in the standard can either. That's not a health requirement. That's a formulation choice. A standard can holds 3 servings by the label's own math, not 1. And most people aren't measuring out a half cup when they open it into a pot. The most trusted name in this entire category is carrying the heaviest additive stack on this list, one of its highest headline sodium figures, and a company identity built almost entirely around the word honest. That beautiful bean company is a tagline built on the assumption that you'll trust the name enough to never need the panel underneath it. For most buyers, for most of the last 100+ years this brand has been on shelves, that assumption has held. Read the actual panel and decide for yourself whether the 2 line up. Now the 3 that actually held up once you look past the label instead of at it. Best option number 3. 365 by Whole Foods Market Black Beans. The most practical clean pick for most people, specifically because it's already sitting on a nearby shelf, not something you have to special order. Whole Foods bans more than 300 ingredients from everything sold under its own name, including the disodium EDTA carried by 3 of the 5 brands you just heard about. The 365 organic black bean ingredient list runs exactly 3 items: prepared organic black beans, water, sea salt. No firming agent, no color preservative, because none of them turned out to be necessary to get the product onto the shelf and keep it there. Food editors surveyed on canned beans by Simply Recipes independently named 365 their consistent go-to pick, specifically pointing to the no salt added version for letting the cook control seasoning rather than inheriting it from the can. Pricing sits in the same general range as the national brands on this list, not a specialty premium tier. Same aisle, comparable price range, a materially shorter and cleaner ingredient list underneath it. Best option number 2. Jovial cannellini beans. Jovial made one structural decision that no major competitor on this list has matched. Their beans are packed in glass jars, not steel cans. That single choice removes the can lining question from the conversation entirely. No BPA, no undisclosed replacement coating, nothing to test for because there's no metal-to-food contact happening in the first place. Jovial grows its beans on small organic farms in Italy's Piedmont region, and rather than simply holding an organic certification and stopping there, the company independently tests and certifies its beans as glyphosate residue-free, then publishes that testing. The ingredient list on Jovial cannellini beans reads: organic cannellini beans, water, sea salt. That's the entire list. The trade-offs are real: $4 to $6 a jar, heavier to carry home, more fragile than a steel can on a hard floor. For removing both the additive question and the can chemistry question from the equation at the same time, Jovial is the cleanest option currently doing it through glass. Best option number 1. Eden Foods black beans. Not close, and it's worth explaining why. Eden was the first canned food company in the United States to eliminate BPA from its can linings back in April of 1999, 27 years before this video, while most of the rest of the canning industry spent the following decade still debating whether BPA was worth addressing at all. Eden expanded that BPA, BPS, and phthalate-free lining to cover high-acid foods as well in 2016. The ingredient list on Eden's organic black beans reads: organic beans, water, kombu seaweed. Kombu is added during the cooking process, specifically because its natural mineral content lets the beans hold their shape and color without calcium chloride or disodium EDTA, the same two chemicals every other brand on this list skip section depends on to do the identical job. Eden states publicly that it refuses both of those processing aids on principle and accepts the occasional broken or cosmetically imperfect bean instead of chemically preventing it. Every batch comes from U.S. Family Farm organic sourcing, with no salt added across the plain product lines. It's the standard the rest of this entire category gets measured against, and most of the category, including some of its most trusted names, isn't close to matching it. Here's what this whole aisle actually comes down to. Nobody markets a can of beans on the strength of its ingredient list, because for most of this category, the ingredient list was never the selling point. The selling point is the name, the mascot, the number of decades it's been sitting in the same spot on the same shelf. That's not an accident of the category, it's the entire business model of the category. A shorter, cleaner ingredient list costs more to produce because it depends on a fresher bean and a faster turnaround instead of a chemical shortcut that lets a product sit on a shelf for 2 years without visibly aging. The 5 brands on the skip list didn't end up with calcium chloride and disodium EDTA in the can because someone was trying to cut corners maliciously. They ended up there because it's cheaper than doing what Eden, Jovial, and 365 are already doing, and because almost nobody buying the product ever checks. The 3 brands on the other side of this list prove the alternative isn't some inaccessible artisan category reserved for people with time and money to spare. It's sitting on the same shelf, sometimes one can away, for a price difference that's real but genuinely small. And it's been sitting there the entire time you were reaching past it for the name you already recognized. Here's the 60-second version to run in the aisle on your next grocery trip. Flip whatever can is already sitting in your pantry over right now and check for 2 specific things on the ingredient list: calcium chloride and disodium EDTA. If both are there, you're holding a can that needed added chemistry to do what a fresher bean and a shorter, more expensive shelf life would have handled without it. Second, check the sodium figure against the half-cup serving size printed on the label, not against how much you're actually going to eat in one sitting, because that gap is usually bigger than it looks. Third, and this one matters more than any ingredient on this entire list, if a can feels swollen, is dented along the seam, or hisses when you open it. Don't taste it to check. Set it aside. Don't cook with it, and don't eat it. That single check is directly tied to every recall named in this video. A can of beans should hold beans, water, and salt. When the list runs longer than that, there's always a specific reason for it. And across this list, that reason was shelf life and manufacturing cost, not your health. None of this requires switching to something expensive or hard to find. It requires about 10 extra seconds in an aisle you've been walking through on autopilot for years. If this changed which can you're reaching for next time, pass it to someone who's still grabbing the default off the shelf without ever flipping it over.